what God did for me last Friday. I don't see Jane here tonight, but I can remember when I talked before on forgiveness, at the very end of that, she said, so in other words, we all should be doing inner healing. And everybody laughed, which is true. And we all do need tune-ups. So here I am, and I had a tune-up with Donna last Friday. What I told you about the fact of my not being thrilled about being asked to teach and how that played back to my 5th grade class. But when things came up with Donna's mother, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, you are going to have to teach another one. I had those feelings of inadequacy again. And I thought, Lord, I thought I took care of all this. What is going on? So I called Donna, and on the way over to her house, I said to the Lord, there has to be something back further. It's got to go back further. And what he showed me was my mother's womb. And I was in the womb, but I was taking on my mother's angst and worry, because before me, she had conceived a girl, and she was 7 months pregnant and fell down the steps, a whole flight of steps. And so she went into labor, had to go to the hospital, and at those times, I don't know if they still do, they called it a blue baby, because the cord was totally wrapped around her neck. And she didn't survive very long at all. And I felt the Lord say to me, you were in that womb, and you were feeling your mother's concerns. Were you going to have the cord wrapped around your neck? Were you going to die? And all that fear, and I felt as that baby in the womb, I was not adequate to make those decisions. And so I told Donna that when I got there. And we prayed about that, and she saw me in the womb with the cord wrapped around my neck. And she cut it. And then, as we continued on, she had a whole lot of other things come to her. But I remember one of the things was a wall of ice blocks. And I couldn't imagine what that was. And I felt the Lord, she saw that and she said, you put up a wall, but it's of ice blocks. And I thought, does that go back to years ago when they used to have ice blocks for refrigerators, particularly in this area, in Ocean City and other areas? And so are there more things from my past? And I could see these ice blocks, and they're starting to melt. And the Lord said, blow on them. Your breath will melt them. So I started to blow on them from top and to bottom. And when I got almost to the bottom, the Lord took a blowtorch and melted the bottom layer. And then we continued on. There was more prayer. It was 2 hours. And it was very interesting because towards the end, and this doesn't happen often, I will say that when I prayed with people, probably only 2 times if I've seen it in 10 years, but I had this intense pain starting in at my abdomen, coming up the center of my chest, up into my throat. And eventually it came into my ears. It was horrendous. It was awful. And of course I told Donna, and she was praying everything possible, and I was too. And all of a sudden I saw, you gotta know, the Holy Spirit wants us clean. And He knows what He needs to show us and tell us. And in this area, there were 5 black knives. One was longer than the other. And I asked him what those knives were. And I didn't get an answer, nor did Donna. So I said, okay, Lord, I don't know what they are. So what do you want me to do? And he said, take them out. So I started with the big one, took it out. Less pain. And went through all of them. And the pain was totally gone. I don't know what they are. I don't care what they are for. God did the work. So I just wanted to tell you that, to encourage you that we always need tune-ups. And God works in layers. He doesn't just bombard us all at once with everything that we have to handle. And so be encouraged that He's a good God and He's willing to just walk us through everything. Okay? And I have to share that we're going to do some self-bitterness work to begin with. And it's very interesting because I thought I heard him say do that and do a God's nest. Forgiveness for God back, I guess it was last Wednesday. Or Wednesday. And I thought, okay, fine. I did the bitterness for myself, self-bitterness. I thought that was done, and then he told me for the second part I was not to do the God bitterness, I was to do something else, which I'm going to do, the orphan spirit and sonship, the second part. But then, today, when I just went over what I had jotted down for the self-bitterness, there was no calm in my spirit. So we're going to do things a little differently tonight. And we'll see what God's going to do. Because I don't know what He's going to do, but I knew that I wasn't supposed to do it as I had planned. I had passed out a sheet of paper that has the bitterness nest at the top. And that's for you because in time we're going to be praying in pairs. And I want you to have that so that you have something to write on and to look at if you want to. All right? All right, let me start with prayer. Father God, we come before you. You're such a good God. Wow, you're a good God. And I just pray tonight that there will be freedom that will come to these people here. Father, you know their needs. I don't. So I pray that you would touch each heart as we go forward this evening. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I want you to, I have to keep remembering to keep this up. I want you to use your paper to write on. I want you to ask the question, what do I think of myself? And I want you to take a minute and write down on that paper what you do think of yourself. Nobody else can tell you that. But for instance, do you think you're honorable? Fearful? Whatever. The next thing I want you to do is ask yourself, where did that thought or thoughts originate? And write that down.
I'm not sure I understand.
Where was the entry point for those thoughts? Just like when I gave you the example of being in the womb, that was the entry point for my feeling inadequate. So where was your entry point for the thoughts about yourself? Some may be good, some may not be. And if they're all good, we've blown the whole session. But it's key, and I had mentioned that to you before when we did forgiveness, that it really is key to find out where it started. Was it something in high school on a particular sports team? Was it back with a grandparent? Who knows? But God knows, and He'll let you know. Now what I want to ask you, since I didn't think about this ahead of time, how many of you had a negative thought about yourself?
Ever?
Yeah, ever. Ever. How many of you said it for, what do you think of yourself, when I asked you that question? How many had a negative? Okay, not too many of you. You're doing, it's so funny because when God gave this to me, I was knowing what I was going to be teaching on, self-bitterness. I thought, oh, they'll all come up with some negative here, and not true. But God knows what He's doing. I just want to say that I am excited that a lot of you had good things that you could put down. And God's affirming that in you. But I want you to think about, if you did put down the negative, or if you've thought of the negative since, I want you to think about what unloving spirits does it entertain. And I'm going to read them off to you. Okay? Self-pity, shame, insecurity, strife, competition, pride, fixing others, false piety, self-rejection, self-doubt, self-unbelief, unworthiness, making comparisons, which really is idolatry, because you're not looking to God for what He says, you're looking to somebody else, you're comparing yourself to somebody else, not Him. What about victim spirit?
What was the word before idolatry?
Comparison. I said that was a form of idolatry. perfectionism, addictions, abandonment, self-abuse, self-sabotage, fear of failure, vulnerability, of man in general. Double-mindedness trips us up all the time. Self-bitterness, self-unforgiveness, self-resentment, self-retaliation, self-anger, self-hatred, self-violence, and murder. They are from that bitterness nest that you got the last time I taught, but instead of just being what they were, now they're self-bitterness instead of just bitterness. Understand? Okay? It's the adjective that makes the difference. So we have to, I'm thinking of myself right now, something just came to me. Bitterness towards myself. When I was in my early 40s, I had stepped into a sin that, even though I went to church for years, all my life, I never heard that much about sin. Sounds funny, but it's true. And so I knew, and I always loved Father God. I can remember, even as a little girl, I always felt Father God was there. And Jesus was a biblical storybook character to me, and the Holy Spirit had no idea. But I had decided to enter into a behavior that, after I did, I thought, oh my goodness, God's not going to like this. Am I going to get to heaven? Because before that, on a scale of 10, I was an 8, and I was in. It's amazing how we can delude ourselves if we don't have the knowledge to lead us on the right path. So anyway, I was going to a community Bible study at the time, in the Word, and I came home one day. I was very young in the Lord. I mean, this might have only been 2 months, 3 months. And I said, you know, Lord, they keep saying that if you repent, you're forgiven. So, could I step back into this sin, repent, and be forgiven? And left it. I was sitting in my car when I drove up, when I asked that. And I went in, got my lunch out, and my dog wanted to go out. And I left her out. And I usually would chain her. And this time I didn't. And I heard one bark, and I didn't go out. And my dog was gone. We could never find her. And I heard God as clearly as could be say, I will not tolerate blatant sin. And the difficult part for me, and the unloving spirit of shame came in, and also self-resentment for hurting my 2 sons and my husband, because they suffered as much as I did because of what I said or asked God. And I can even remember my son having a note on his desk when I was cleaning that said, Dusty, come home, please come home. So that I recognized at that point that when we do step into sinful behaviors, we often hurt those we love most dearly. So that was one of the things that I was bitter towards myself. Another thing was when David was about 2, he was in the hospital, and they kept telling me I had to go home at night. And I've always been one to obey authority. And so I went home at night. And he evidently would just be screaming and be miserable all the time. And so they told me, please don't come back the next day. He has to stay here another night. He'll be better off if you're not here. And I wasn't there. And that God brought up to me. And I had self-bitterness for not being with my child and saying to them, I need to be here. I need to be here. So we don't realize how easy it is just because of life to take on self-bitterness and these unloving spirits. And one thing I really would encourage is that with your children, particularly, or even with anybody else, that you ask the Lord to show you what you need to ask them forgiveness for. And go to them and ask. And it's very interesting, because I know with my one son, Mom, it's okay, it's okay. And I kept saying, no, you have to say, I forgive you. And we got to one thing, and I don't even remember what it was, but his whole body language changed. That was something I knew that had really hurt him. And if you ask for forgiveness, you've done your part. And if they say, I forgive you, it breaks things off of them. So I would highly recommend that you do that. All right, so where did if you had any unloving spirits, where did they gain entry? And I'm going to have you all think about that, because you are going to be praying with each other in one point in this. And in fact, I think I'm going to have you get in pairs right now, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to look at your bitterness nest at the top here. And it has what they are. And you just add self in front of them. And you renounce and repent of the unloving spirit that might have brought any unforgiveness, self-unforgiveness, self-resentment, self-retaliation. I would like you to get with somebody and pray, start out praying, and ask the Spirit to show you where you have one of these unloving spirits within you that needs to be prayed for. And do that with your partner. And then have the other one do it, okay? And renounce and repent of those unloving spirits that you have let into your life. Now, I know most of you said that you thought really highly of yourself, but I'm hoping, since I put out a few examples, that you will examine yourself more closely and see if there is some self-bitterness that you need to ask forgiveness for. All right? So I want you to share. I want you to forgive others that could have been a part of you taking on self-bitterness. Forgive yourself. And do that bitterness nest at the top. And when you finish that, say for me, say I had shame. You want to pray into the other person the opposite of that. Worthiness. Okay?
Is there a list of the opposites?
Yeah, I have it, no, I don't have a list of the opposites. Just hope that the Holy Spirit gives you that. And the last thing is to envision a cord that connects you to those unloving spirits that I mentioned. You don't want them. You do not want them. So cut it, a clean cut. Take it strand by strand, the cord, however you feel led. But break the cord that keeps you connected to any unloving spirits or any part of the self-bitterness nest. All right? That's really key. And then put it to death on the cross. And bring any unhealthy soul ties. You know, we can have good and bad soul ties with a friend. You know, the bad soul ties, maybe they get us into trouble or they speak untruths to us. But then they might be there when we're sick. So we want to keep good soul ties, but not the negative soul ties. So if there's a reason somebody else is involved with your self-bitterness and allowing all these unloving spirits to come in, you want to break the soul tie with that person. All right? Any questions before you get started? All right, and then there won't be too much more on this topic to do after this. So I'd appreciate you getting started on that with
You
your...
want to skip ahead now, too?
Yeah, you can choose somebody to do this with. Move your chair around if you have to. To recognize that unloving spirits pull the strings, our strings, and we can often be like puppets as they pull the strings. But we have to believe what God says about ourselves. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. We're the apple of His eye. He's engraved us on the palm of His hand. And He knows each of us. He told Jeremiah that He knew him before he was formed in the womb, and He knew that he was going to be a prophet. And He knew us before we were even in the womb. And He knows exactly what giftings He's given us for His glory. And so we have to remember that as we come against those things that are not of Him. We need to know how precious we are to God. And as I said, we do have that ability to accomplish His purposes, what He desires. We also have to take responsibility for our sin, as David did. I think of him with Nathan, and how he right away confessed and repented. Fear can't operate if we truly love God, because we'll recognize it and we'll get rid of it. Some people with self-bitterness go into cutting and other abusive behaviors. That's another reason why we need to get rid of all the unloving spirits, so they have no ground to cause that in us. Many times we're drawn to others who need us so that we'll feel good about ourselves. We don't need to do that. We know who we are in Christ. And remember that hope deferred makes the heart sick. We can have hope. I can remember years ago the Lord told me, hope, having only precious expectancies. That's what we should have in the Lord. No more self-doubt, no more self-bitterness or unbelief. Don't let the unloving spirits get to you. God chose us. He saved us. He sealed us with the Holy Spirit. What would we do without the Holy Spirit? Don't you wonder sometimes what it was like in Old Testament times when they had the power of the Spirit come on them at different times, but not within them all the time? I mean, I can't even imagine not having Him now. We're seated at the right hand of God. We're secure. We're full heirs of God. We're in a position of strength as we trust in Him. So, Father, right now, I ask that for every person here, they would recognize when unloving spirits start pulling their strings, and that they will immediately renounce and repent of them. Cut those strings and say no way, and call forth the opposite of what it is that was pulling and tugging at them. Father, I thank you for these people here today, and I thank you for their growing in you. Just give them wisdom as they go forward, Lord. Let them recognize what you know they need to recognize. In Jesus' name, amen.
So we'll take.
I understand that some of you didn't get to pray at all. And others of you are still were. So that was very exciting for me. And I'm sure the Lord was really pleased that you got that far. But I would encourage you to take those things that you wrote down that you felt that you needed to pray about. And if you see the person during the week or at another time that you were praying with, if you didn't finish, maybe you could hook up and do that. And if not, try to do it on your own or call me. Okay? All right, Father, we're back again, and we're going to be moving forward with the orphan spirit versus the spirit of sonship. In the scriptures, in Lamentations 5, 1 to 3, it says, I want John 14, 18. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. And in Romans 8:15, he says, for you have not received a spirit of slavery, leading to fear again, but you received a spirit of adoption as sons, by which we cry out, Abba, Father. Daddy God. In 1 John 3, 1 and 2, it says, see how great a love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called children of God, and such we are, beloved. Now we are children of God. And in 1 John 5:20, it says, and we know that the Son of God is come and has given us an understanding in order that we may know him who is true. And we are in him who is true, in his Son, Jesus Christ. This is the true and eternal life. So what is a spiritual orphan? Orphan hearts feel that they don't have a safe and secure place in the Father's heart, where he protects them, he affirms them, he provides for them, expresses his love to them, Orphan hearts don't have the trust. The trust is missing. When we don't feel at home and secure and at rest in the Father's love, it becomes very easy to live as if you don't have a home. An orphan spirit is one of the greatest hindrances to people receiving healing and walking in expressed love, in intimacy, and in healthy relationships. We have to be willing to let go of our need, get this, to suppress childhood pain and to control our emotions in order to open our hearts to receive the Father's healing love and to walk in true intimacy with others. Basic trust needs to be restored. That's where the safety is. When we are truly at home in that Father's love, we don't constantly struggle with fears and anxieties, insecurities, addictions, striving over and over again. All right? So there are steps of how our hearts begin to see ourselves as orphans. There are patterns that lead to the insecure place. People fail us, we get hurt or disappointed. Our responses to those events or circumstances or people begin the process of building bondage. Then we see God through the filter of the false belief systems and are blocked from receiving His love. We see faults in our earthly father and we focus on them, not understanding that his attitudes and actions were misrepresentations of love that often come from his own unhealed issues, his wounding and brokenness. For some reason, we touch his inner core of pain and experience a manifestation of it. We become disappointed, disillusioned, discouraged, and wounded. Basic trust in parental authority is lost. But this whole thing today, I was just feeling the orphan heart. I had a good day. But I could feel the pain of the orphan heart. And He gave me a picture of a rowboat out on the water. Nobody was in it. And there were people standing on the shore. And I said, Lord, what does this mean? You know, I know you were in the boat and you told Peter to come to you, but you're not in the boat. So what am I supposed to say? And he said, no, I'm not in the boat. I'm on the shore with my people. And he said, I can take them to the boat. So we have to trust in Father God to walk us through and out of the orphan spirit. He's the one that will do it. We perceive and therefore receive the faults as personal rejection. And a spirit of rejection and grief will gain a foothold. And that leads to fear of submission and a lack of ability to receiving love, comfort, admonition, etc. from parents. No closeness, no ability to bond. We move in isolation and independence. We open a door to an independent spirit. God didn't mean for us to be independent. People say, you know, I can't trust you to help me. I'd rather handle everything myself. I'm going to have to do it anyway. And we hide or deny our pain, and we have no secure place where we're affirmed and comforted. We stop receiving our Father as Father, and in many cases, our Mother as Mother. We give up and cease to be sons and daughters as such. Our hearts close to our earthly Father, and because of that, often to our Heavenly Father. This results in a closed human spirit and an unwillingness to risk being vulnerable and keeping the heart open. We often take on a spirit of defiance and rebellion. It can manifest as self-reliance, controlling others with outward anger or aggressive behavior, or it can be just the opposite. It can go into passivity, to isolation. And all the relationships become very superficial out of fear of being hurt again. And we shut down our feelings to gain control of our emotions. Our heart gets walled off, and we are determined never to be hurt again. Nobody really knows us. We especially keep distance from those in authority, from the very ones that may help by providing comfort and wise counsel, love and acceptance and belonging. There are feelings of aloneness and isolation that come. We live like a spiritual orphan from an ungodly belief system. So what are the root causes? There are 4 basic emotional needs that need to be met. One of them is security. But we can have a counterfeit affection, possessions, trying to find security in money and things instead of God. Another basic emotional need is unconditional love. Unconditional love. And the counterfeit are passions of trying to gain affectionate, unconditional love through addiction, compulsions to alcohol, drugs, food, immoral issues, or even fantasies. The third emotional need is value and affirmation. The counterfeit often is in a position trying to find acceptance, affirmation, and value by striving to be seen or slaving for the praise of men, position, or spiritual ambition. The fourth one is a purpose. And the counterfeit is power. Trying to obtain purpose and reason by being in control of your own life and destiny by wielding power. And so what's the end result? A spiritual orphan. A person who finds it very difficult to receive love, acceptance, or admonition from God, or from others, especially during times when they feel like they have failed, or when they believe others have failed them. The spiritual orphan can't have true intimacy. They focus their relationship with God upon His acts, using His gifts and walking in discipline, duty, or in hyper-religious activity instead of just being with Him. The spiritual orphan's relationships with others depend on others' performances. What can they do for them? Rather than who are they in God's eyes? They feel threatened or withdraw if others get too close to their hidden core pain. So their relationships are very surface and they become oppressed. And I'd like you to look now at the paper that has orphan spirit and sonship spirit. Now I'd like you, as I read down these, Father, I pray that as I read down these, that you would help each person to recognize if they have even a little bit of the orphan spirit or the sonship, and help them to put a mark next to what it is, whether it's the sonship or whether it's the orphan. All right? Let's look at the center column. The first thing is the image of God. Do you see God as master or as a loving Father? Dependency. Are you independent and self-reliant? Or are you interdependent and acknowledge needs when necessary? It's not wrong to have some self-reliance, but it is if that's all you do. Okay? Theology. Do you live by the law of love? Do you live by the love of the law, or do you live by the law of love? I'll try to keep going left to right. Security. Are you insecure and lack peace? Or do you rest and have peace? Need for approval. Do you strive for praise, approval, and acceptance of man? Or do you feel totally accepted in God's love and justified by His grace? Just think how sad it would be if Jesus died on that cross for us, what He gave up for us, not to be justified by His grace. Motive for service. You have a need for personal achievement as you seek to impress God and others, or no motivation to serve at all? Or is the service motivated by a deep gratitude for being unconditionally loved and accepted by God? The motive behind Christian disciplines, duty in earning God's favor, or no motivation at all? Or is it pleasure and delight? What's the motive for purity? Notice the words that are in quotation marks. Must be holy to have God's favor, thus increasing a sense of shame and guilt. Or do you want to be holy and you don't want anything to hinder that intimate relationship with God? In self-image, self-rejection from comparing yourself to others? Or are you positive and affirmed because you know you have such value to God? Source of comfort. Do you seek comfort in counterfeit affections? We mentioned these before, the addictions and compulsiveness and busyness and all that hyper-religious activity that you do for your own pride. Or do you seek times of quietness and solitude to rest in Father God's presence and love? In your peer relations, do you have competition, rivalry, jealousy? Or do you have humility and unity as you value others and are able to rejoice in their blessings and success? Handling others' faults. Is there accusation and exposure in order to make yourself look good by making others look bad? Or does love covers as you seek to restore others in a spirit of love and gentleness? In the view of authority, do you see it as a source of pain, distrustful towards them, and a lack of heart or attitude of submission? Or do you see it as respectful, honoring, and you see them as ministers of God for good in your life? What about your view of admonition? Do you have difficulty receiving admonition? You must be right, so you easily get your feelings hurt and close your spirit to discipline or to others. Do you see the receiving of admonition as a blessing and a need in your life, so that your faults and weaknesses are exposed and put to death, gotten rid of, and you can say thank you. Thank you, friend. Thank you, God. In your expression of love, are you guarded and conditional? Can I trust that person or not? Based upon the other's performance as you seek to get your own needs met? Or are you open, patient, affectionate as you lay your life and agendas down in order to meet the needs of others? Regarding the sense of God's presence, is it conditional and distant? Or is it close and intimate? Do you feel His arms around you when you're in need? Can you see Him taking your hand? Is the condition one of bondage or one of liberty? The neat thing is to be free as He created you to be. In position, do you feel like a servant or a slave? Or do you feel like a son and daughter? Is the vision one of spiritual ambition, the earnest desire for spiritual achievement and distinction, and the willingness to strive for it, a desire to be seen and counted among the mature? Or is it daily to experience the Father's unconditional love and acceptance, and then be sent as a representative of His love to family and others? So in the future, do you fight for what you can get? Or does sonship release your inheritance? The end. I want you to just close your eyes for a minute. Father, we all need you, and I pray that we may all receive your infinite love. There might be people here tonight that never had a father. Help them to acknowledge that lack in their hearts as well as in their mind. If their father died or left them, help them to acknowledge the loss and recognize the cost. Help them to know when they closed off to the love of their parents, particularly their father. Help them to get in touch with the pain and loneliness that ensued from that time and incident. Jesus, would you come present to any memory or disappointment? Show yourself to them and speak the truth to them, deep into their heart and spirit. Help them to forgive those who parented them. For those parents that were not able to love them nor affirm a life that was given to them as you created them to be. Help them to accept their parents as they were or are, knowing only God can change them. That you are the only one that can see their needs and desires. In giving this forgiveness, Father, help them to bless their parents and no longer sit in judgment. Help them once again with their parents to break any soul ties that are not of you and cut the cords and put it to death on the cross. And Father, I ask that you would restore basic trust, that you would go back to the time in their lives when trust should have been built, but instead there was a crack that formed in the foundation of their life. You're God, and time and space don't hinder you, Lord. So I ask you to minister to the little one in my friends here. Let your forgiveness flow towards the parents for their lack of affection and appropriate touch. Search out each of my friends' wounds and heal them, Lord. I ask that you sovereignly reach down and pick up the little one, ministering your comfort, your nurture, your assurance. Communicate the delight you have in them. Let them know how much you cherish them. I ask that you hold the little one close to your heart, letting the strength of your spirit flow into their spirit. Fill the cracks of the foundation with your strength and solidity. I'm going to read a prayer that I want you to pray after me. I will pray it in phrases. If there's anything that you do not want to pray, you don't have to pray. And you can pray it out loud or quietly. But if somebody does it out loud, then let me know when you're finished. Lord, I confess I do not trust. This lack of trust has permeated my life and hindered me. And I know I must forgive. Forgive me for resenting you, Lord, for putting me in my family when you did. I'm just thinking now as I'm going through this with you, since I was so focused on the orphan spirit, there are probably many of you here that have a spirit of sonship. But I wanted those who have the orphan spirit to be able to pray this through. And so I'm still going to read it from that aspect. And I hope you'll understand if you've had that, like I did, a great daddy, and I didn't have an orphan spirit. And I was surprised God wanted me to do this. So I'm going to continue in the vein of the orphan spirit. But if you don't, as I said, if you don't feel this, you don't pray it, okay? Heal the wound of my distrust of you, because it has caused a difference in our relationship. Help me to see you and know your faithfulness. Touch my eyes, that I may see clearly, and build within me what has not been there. I choose now to forgive my parents for the woundings they caused me for lack of affection and for inappropriate touch. Heal these places in my spirit so that I can be free, if they're still living, to have a relationship with them again. If not, help me to forgive them if they've passed on. Show me how to walk in wisdom in that relationship. Lord, forgive me for judging you and my family, for determining not to trust. I confess my need for trust and my inability to build it myself. I need your help, so please help me not to run or hide when love comes close. I ask you to build and restore trust, and with it, restore the years the locusts have taken. I choose now to put the orphan spirit to death. In Jesus' name, amen. I am going to I'm going to put on a CD by Graham Cook, and some of you may know it. And then afterwards, if we have time, I'm going to ask that those of you that feel that you need to forgive your father for things, and you would like to have a blessing spoken over you, we'll have one of the men come to you, and you share with them what the pain is that you have been unable to release regarding your father. It might be your mother, but right now I was focusing on father. And that they will then literally stand in for your father and speak a blessing over you. Okay?